plugin and it just works. Of course, we're going to customize ours to get the most out of it, but you still get some benefit just by installing the plugin. The plugin lets you create an XML sitemap, which you can use to automatically notify search engines when you add new content to your site. You can also customize how your posts will be previewed when shared on social media. And the free plugin includes some functionality to add e-commerce microdata, which can be displayed on search engine results pages, or SERPs as they're commonly known. If you've never tried to optimize your site, this is a great plugin to start with. I'm going to go to my site, I'll go to plugins, and then add new. I'll type in All-in-One SEO Pack. And let's click Install Now. And then activate. Now we're ready to start configuring the settings. Now that we've installed and activated the plugin, let's configure it. We can click on All-in-One SEO to get started. This will open up our general settings. And you may notice a warning up here that search engines might not be able to index your site. If you see this, this means that WordPress is telling search engines to ignore your site. If you're currently working on a test site, that is fine. But if this is your live site, you need to turn that off. It is the opposite of SEO. So we can go to Settings, Reading, and then uncheck Discourage search engines from indexing this site. Save changes, and then we'll go back to All-in-One SEO. Now we're going to configure all of the basic settings that we need. For the most part, these will be things like setting page titles and the URL structure of the pages, which are really important for SEO. I'm going to minimize this banner about their mailing list. Now let's go through these settings. There are a lot of settings here, but we're going to focus on the ones that are important for us. If you need more details about any of these settings, you can click on the question mark icon and help text will appear. Canonical URLs are very useful and should be turned on by default. Sometimes with WordPress, it's possible to access the same content through different URLs. By defining canonical URLs, Google will know which one is the master copy. This should prevent duplicate content penalties. If you want to know more about canonical URLs, you can read some here, but just know that this setting basically takes care of it. This schema.org option I recommend leaving on. Technically, the microdata specified on schema.org isn't official HTML, so if you run your site through an HTML validator, you'll get errors. If you really want valid code, you could uncheck the setting, but I would rather give search engines more information with the markup from schema.org, even if it's not official HTML. Again, there are a lot of advanced options on this page, and most sites won't need to touch these. But let's scroll down to the title section. This section lets us configure how we want to create page titles. This plugin will add a bit more information to our page titles, which is really useful to SEO. The first thing we want to do is make sure that rewriting page titles is enabled. And then for our site, let's take a look at what an actual page title looks like before we do anything. Here's our pumpkin pie recipe. I'm going to click on View, Developer, and then Source Code. And right here, I can see the title tag, which is what the search engines use for the title for this page. So you can see the name of the post, which is pumpkin pie, and the site name. And we can see that back here under post title format. the name of the post, and the name of the site. Right now, what we have is accurate, but a little short. With this plugin, we can add some extra information to that page without doing extra work on each post. So let's change this post title format. This will affect all of our blog posts. Right now, there's these two placeholders. Let's add a third one. I'll copy this right here, category title, and I'll click back into the post title format box. I'll paste in category title, and I'll add a new pipe character. I'll click on Update Options. I'll go to the source code for this page. Let's refresh this. Now we can see it says pumpkin pie recipes topsy-turvy cake design. This helps search engines and users understand this page a little more before they click into it. You don't want your page titles to be too long. So if you have long titles, long category names, or a long site title, you don't want to do this. But for us, adding recipes is short enough that I think it adds some useful context. And with that, we've made sure all of the essential settings are checked. We've updated our site titles, and now it's time to dig into a few more settings. Continuing through the general settings, we'll scroll down to the section on custom post types, or as this plugin calls it, content types. If you have a plugin or some custom programming that adds extra information to your site, you might want to add SEO information to that content. So if you use an e-commerce plugin like WooCommerce, you might see products listed right here. And I recommend checking that checkbox. Basically, this setting tells the plugin what screens you want to display the controls that add extra SEO information. And we're going to show you how to do that in a future video. This next section is about verification. You definitely want to verify your sites because Google will email you if there's a problem indexing your site. While you can verify your site through a plugin, you can also verify through other means. For example, once you set up Google Analytics for your site, see the WordPress course about analytics in the library on how to do that, you can just click a button and verify the ownership of your site through your analytics account. It's just a few clicks. Either verification method works, but since I add everything to Google Analytics anyways, it's a bit easier for me to do that way than to manually copy and paste codes this way. This next section, under Google Settings, is worth configuring. It associates your Google Plus account with your site. SEO experts have been going back and forth on how important this is. Since it only takes a few minutes to set up, and it gives Google more information, I recommend setting it up. I'll go to my Google Plus account, copy my URL, and paste it in here. There's a setting here for Display Site Links search box. If you have a ton of content, you can give people the option of searching your site from the search engine results page. So for example, we can go to Google right here, and if we type in Amazon or any sort of big brand name, we'll see these links down here which are called site links. Sometimes the site links will also show you a search this site option right here, which can be controlled by this option right here. So if you want to let users search your site from the search engine results page, which I recommend, check this checkbox. Lastly, I like that they have the Google Analytics ID right here. This is really nice since it's all in one plugin. But since I like to tweak everything and have it run exactly the way I want it to run, I'm going to avoid filling in this field and instead install a plugin made for Google Analytics, which we cover in the Analytics course. The rest of these settings are pretty advanced or niche. Let's go back up to the top, save our options, and we're done. We've configured the site-wide settings. Now, let's add SEO information to our pages and posts. You'll want to spend a bit of time doing this to each and every one of your posts and pages. Once you get the hang of it, it should only take you a few minutes per post. This step is critical going forward. If you're going to pursue SEO, you need to optimize your pages and posts. Before we do that, I want to show you what will be changing. Let's take a look at this post about pumpkin pie on the front end. You can see the title on the tab up here. Pumpkin pie, recipes, and then topsy-turvy cake design. This comes from the title tag in the HTML. And we can view that under View, Developer, and View Source. Right here. You can also see that the blog post title is also pumpkin pie. Right now, the blog post title, pumpkin pie, and the SEO title are virtually the same. I'm going to show you when you might want to customize your SEO title. I'll click on Edit Post, and we can see the post right here in the editor. If we scroll all the way down, we now see new settings from All-in-One SEO. There's a title field, a description field, and a few checkboxes. And right up top is the preview snippet. This will show us what our post could look like in the search engine results page. By default, the title right here uses the title of the blog post. And the description uses the excerpt of the page if you have that set. With this plugin, both of these can be overridden. So if we wanted to have a slightly different page title show up on the search page, we can type it in here. I could type in something like My Pumpkin Pie Recipe. 9 times out of 10, you're going to have very similar titles. However, this functionality becomes really useful if you have a brand that's cheeky, sarcastic, or just not straightforward in some way. Let me give you an example. If I'm a well-known food blogger and people know that I talk about food on my site, I could have a post title that goes something like, What to do with all the leftovers after carving a pumpkin. And my readers would assume I'm going to turn it into some sort of food. But to someone who is new to my site, who just wants a pumpkin pie recipe, we should be a bit more obvious. Then we could scroll down and call this pumpkin pie recipe or my pumpkin pie recipe. And this is what will show up on Google. I'll go up here and change this back to pumpkin pie recipe since that isn't my brand. Now let's scroll back down and we can see the description field, or as it's known in the SEO world, the meta description. Now, if we don't set anything here, search engines will guess the most important sentence in our article. And while they try their best, they usually get it wrong. It's usually the first sentence of our blog post, which might not be all that enticing. So let's set a meta description for the article. I'll usually recommend taking a bit of content from the article and then cutting it down to the most useful information for a user. In this case, they might care about the ingredients, how long it takes to make, and how good it tastes. I'll set mine too. If we save this and go back to our page, we'll see that the meta description has now been set. So I'll click Update. Let's go to the source code for this page, and now we can see the meta description. Now search engines know exactly what we want displayed. One quick note on meta descriptions. Search engines don't always display what you set. If you set something that's misleading, like win a free car, and there's no way to win a free car, the search engines might change your meta description on the search engine results page. So be enticing, but be honest with your meta descriptions. Let's go back to the admin and cover the last few options. For the most part, all of these options allow you to hide a page from the search engines. Let's say it's a hidden members only page, then you would want to no index that page. Now, I'm not going to spend much time on these because there are membership plugins that will protect your pages better than manually hiding pages this way. So after changing out our title and meta description, we're done. You can click Update, and this post is optimized. Writing a meta description and SEO title can be hard to wrap your head around at first. But after you get in the habit of taking the most important information and cutting it down to 1 or 2 sentences, it really only takes a few minutes per post. And creating headlines and meta descriptions that convert, meaning get people to click, is one of the key skills of SEO. I'll click Update, and we're done. We've configured SEO information for the site, and we know how to add it to each of our posts. There are a few more things that we can do to help with SEO. From the all-in-one SEO admin menu, we can go to the Feature Manager. There's a ton of extra features in here. I'm going to turn on XML sitemaps. I'll click Activate, and this will give us the ability to automatically create XML sitemaps which we can submit to search engines, which gives them a list of every single web page on our site. And when we add new content to our site, the XML sitemap is automatically updated and the search engines are pinged to index that new content. Now that we've turned on the feature, there's a new menu item called XML sitemap under all-in-one SEO. Let's click that. From this page, we can see all of the settings for our XML sitemaps. And we can preview the sitemap itself. Let's click on View Your XML Sitemap. I'll open that in a new tab. And here we can see all of the URLs for our site, as well as how many images there are and the priority or how important those pages are. Let's close this. And let's change just a few of these settings. The schedule updates right here will automatically notify search engines how often something updates. So if you release news every day, you could say that, or every week, or every month. Let's just say for right now, we want to have a new post every month. We can let search engines know that. We can scroll down, and here we can control what type of content will show up in a sitemap. I personally don't see the need to put images in a sitemap. These images are almost always included in our post and page content, so Google will find them anyway, and it'll keep our sitemap a little bit cleaner. So you can turn off media and attachments. Then we can scroll down to the section about priority. This is something you might actually want to tweak. It tells search engines how important a specific page is compared to other pages. So it doesn't affect other websites, but if a search engine thinks 2 pages are ranked pretty highly for a specific keyword, setting the priority here will help the search engine display the best result. So by default, your home page is usually set to something like a 1, as in it's the most important page. And then pages are usually set to something like 0.9. And then taxonomies like categories and tags could be set to something like 0.8. This way, people will usually wind up on your home page, but if not, they'll wind up on a specific page, and if not, then they'll wind up on a category page. However, if people are finding a lot of value in a category page, for example, a page that lists a bunch of recipes, that could be really valuable. Then we could set that to 0.9 and post to 0.8, meaning we prefer people to land on our recipes page instead of a specific recipe. This works really well if someone is typing in something like cake recipes and we have a whole list of recipes for them to choose from. When we're done, we can scroll up and save our settings. The basic XML sitemap that we created is going to be good for a majority of sites. But if you want to dig into sitemaps and figure out exactly what every single link and setting means, you can check out sitemaps.org. Let's go ahead and add something that's not technically related to SEO, but the technology is so similar that it's usually included in SEO plugins. We'll go to the Feature Manager, and we're going to turn on Social Meta. I'll click Activate. And over here on the left, we now see Social Meta. Let's click that. This adds meta information so social media sites know exactly which image and title to use when someone shares your content on their platform. Specifying a title, description, and image for social media sites is very similar to setting one for SEO. For social media, there's a special format called Open Graph, and the settings on this page will add all of the Open Graph tags on your pages. There are a ton of settings here, and I'm not going to cover every single one. For the most part, social media sites do a decent job. We're just going to help them out when it's ambiguous. Let's jump to the most useful section. That's the one down here about images. As the saying goes, images are worth 1,000 words. So let's make sure that when someone shares one of our pages that the image looks good. The setting, Select OG Image Source, is the image that will be used. We most likely are going to want to set this to the featured image for the post. So for our pumpkin pie recipe, it's going to be the image of that finished pumpkin pie. And then for any pages that don't have a featured image, like for example the front page for your site, let's click Use Default Image if no image found. And now we can upload one. If you have nothing else, go ahead and use your logo. I'll click Upload Image. I'll upload our logo. Click Choose Image. And I'll set the width and the height just to make sure social media sites know exactly how it should look. There's plenty more settings on this site. If you want to customize these settings, you can do so. But I'm a big fan of 80/20. And if you're a brand new site just starting out, all of these defaults will be fine. Once you start getting a lot of shares on social media networks, then it's worth coming back here and tweaking things so that every time someone shares one of your pages, it displays exactly as you want. We'll go back up to the top, click Update Options, and now, whenever someone shares this page on a social network like Facebook, we should see the title we want, the meta description, and the featured image.